everyone. Hello and welcome to Pop Cult X. Welcome to our special presentation, our little talk, so to speak. It's our conversation series where we chat with a wide variety of creative people. Today, we're fortunate and happy and thrilled and delighted to be joined by David Quiroz Jr., who is the creator and writer of Night of the Chihuahuas.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us. Yes, we appreciate your time. You don't realize how difficult it is to spell Chihuahua until you're typing it a bunch of times.
Right?
I can no longer need autocorrect to spell it right. I don't no longer need to look it up. I have it ingrained in my brain now.
Yeah. Chihuahua. That's how I always remember it.
Exactly. Wah wah. So right off the bat, why a Chihuahua? Why Chihuahuas?
Okay, so this always makes sense if you grew up like I did, if I'm Latino and when our nanas had Chihuahuas, they were mean as heck. And so everybody else I meet, they're always like, "What are you talking about? I carry mine in my purse and it's all, it's so well behaved and spoiled and pampered." And I'm like, the Chihuahuas I grew up with, they lived outside, they scavenged, and they defended their territory like nothing else. And so I always grew up, and it was funny because, my Nana gave us her Chihuahua and it was old, and then she gave it to us and it lived for like another 10 years. It was already old when we got it. By the end of it, she was blind and toothless, and she still chased everybody out of the house. And she was like the queen of the territory. And I always used to tell her, if you had the strength to back up your attitude, you would be illegal to own. And then that saying, when I said that to her, something clicked in my head, and I just thought, how funny would it be if there were these Chihuahuas that they look normal, but they had gotten into something that suddenly they could, do all the things that they thought they could. And it just became like a very funny concept. And then I started developing it, and, I'm a horror fanatic. And so I just started kind of basing it on all the campy monster movies that I grew up watching.
Well, let's get into that a little bit before we talk more about Night of Chihuahua. Let's talk a little bit about yourself. So you said you're a horror fanatic. So you grew up, we're about, I think, the same generation. So what was like your favorite horror movie growing up? Or did you have several?
Yeah, I had several. Yeah, I grew up, my absolute favorite horror movie of all time is, it still is Night of the Living Dead, the original. I hate that I have to clarify that. It's like, no, the 1968 version. And then similarly, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 1970, the original version, it's
the original, right.
Yeah. So, but those two left a really profound impression on me as a youngster, just sort of like, it's showing that what horror could do, because it's like, as a child I always watched movies that I shouldn't have, and it was more of the thrill of like, wow, this is freaky, and everybody's getting scared, and I don't know what to make of these scares and scenarios and things like that. And then once I got a little bit older and I could see like the social context of it and how they represented the times and the fears of the generation, and like you can look back and identify things that reasons that people made these boogeymen and made the characters that are running away from said boogeyman and what they were really trying to say. And and it's like, you grew up and you hear these fairy tales, you hear like for me, my nana was always, everything was like, it will kill you if you don't listen to me. It was like, don't go outside at night or the cucuy will eat you. Don't go by the canal or La Llorona is going to get you. There was always a penalty for every lesson. And so it's like, horror movies and horror tales are very much similar to that. They're, cautionary tales, and they're things that represent what the storyteller is afraid of, more so than what they're trying to make the audience afraid of.
That's very true. Very true. It is more about representation of who created the story, right? So if on our last episode, my co-host and I, Gabe, who couldn't be here tonight, he apologizes, but he talked about having this fear of zombie flicks, and he's always has been scared of zombie movies, and he owns a Chihuahua himself. So nice. First off, he said, yeah, she's definitely not a purse dog. But what he wants to know, like, what is your favorite zombie movie then? Do you have like an all-time great beyond Night of the Living Dead?
Dawn of the original Dawn of the Dead. It's probably so that's the movie that I saw when I was like 6. And I mean, can you imagine, like, as a 6-year-old watching this movie? I have no idea what my uncle was thinking when he showed it to me. But it's another one of those ones that, like, I watched it and it was just like, what is this? What is going on? It was so insane. Gave me nightmares for years, and I just wanted that thrill. But more than anything, it's a it works on many levels, talking about like consumerism and a lot of the things that, what the zombies represent. The fact that they're in a shopping mall is not an accident. It's telling another part of the story. And, the way that, what I always told people is I like Zack Snyder's version. I think it's a fun movie, but it lacks the depth and the character of that original movie.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, for myself, I always had this fear of werewolves. So I watched American Werewolf in London as a child, and that really implanted, I think, on me until I was able to like overcome that fear as a teenager. But
now, were you afraid of like transforming into a werewolf, or were you afraid of the werewolves coming after you?
I think I was more afraid of the werewolves coming after me.
Okay.
It was like just the fear of being hunted, I guess. And in a dream that I had, I was being hunted until I finally said enough is enough, and I stood my ground and defeated said werewolf. So I think that's when I overcame that. But I think you onto something about the storytellers representing what they fear. So imagine like the creators of like Friday the 13th, were they afraid of getting slashed in the woods?
Well, I think, and that's kind of funny too, because I think that was also like I've done a lot of work in independent cinema. And so I know like, a lot of that too is more opportunity of they were trying to appeal to an audience because they had seen, I think at that point they had already seen, Halloween did gangbusters and it was cheap to make. And they were like, we can do that. That's what people want to see. So it was at that point, I'd love to get into Victor Miller's head a little bit as far as, okay, so they task you with a bunch of nubile teenagers getting hunted down at a summer camp. Where did your psychology come into play with making it a mother whose son had been killed? It's like that is where I think that talks a little bit, even though the scenario was presented by the producers. Now it's up to the screenwriter to say, okay, well, here's where I'm going to dig in and, dig into some of my own fears and what I have. But yeah, I think in that situation too, it's a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like exploitation as it were. Because of what they were trying to emulate.
Now, you mentioned screenwriters, and you yourself are a screenwriter, as well as a comic book writer. So, what would you say is the biggest challenge or difference between the two genres or mediums, I guess?
I would say it's the thing that I've learned the most being a comic book writer, and I've always been a fan of comic books, and so I always wanted to write my own comic books. Finally getting the opportunity is understanding that, writers like Alan Moore can get away with like very verbose panels, but like when you work with an artist and they sit you down and they say, I cannot fit this huge monologue into this panel of art that you want me to. It's forced me to really focus more on how you're telling the story visually, which film is also visual, but film is moving images. And so you have a little bit more leeway with every panel is like, what are you conveying visually there? Because essentially somebody picking up a comic book, and there are of course exceptions to this, but for the most part, you're picking up a comic book because of what you're seeing. You want to have great dialogue, you want to have great characters. That's of course very important, but learning how to focus more on visuals has been something that's taken a little bit of getting used to, and that's something that I would say is probably the biggest difference. The most fun thing though is that you can get away with so much. It's like, you don't have a producer leaning over your shoulder going, dude, I can't afford that. Why did you just write a space station blowing up? And it's like, artist is going to draw that, man. It's cool.
That's cool. That's very true. I mean, it's just like with animation to live action, right? You could push the boundaries more, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very true. How much so you said, or I read that you're from Arizona or in Arizona now. Did that have a play in forming your not just Chihuahua love, because we talked about that, but also your love of like horror, or how much where you grew up play into how you write now?
That's a really good. So, because I mean, when you think of horror, people like, the classic horror is always like these Victorian architectures and these like old haunted buildings. And, where I live, the oldest building I think was built in like 1950. There's nothing like old and ancient and stuff here, but there was a whole culture and the whole people that lived here long before us, and the name Phoenix, the city that I live in, Phoenix, or I technically live in Gilbert, which is a suburb, but whatever, it's Phoenix. But Phoenix rose from and they named it that because there was an entire civilization here already, and they basically just built this new city on top of it. So they said it was going to rise from the ashes of the previous, but the previous people left for a reason. They weren't driven out. They weren't like they were gone. They were like, right. There's no water. It's hot. This place sucks. We're out of here. And so I think a lot of that is like the newness of it, the fact that everything's so modern and clean and sterile, and there's something creepy about that. And I think Tim Burton always does a pretty good job of showing that. I was thinking like Beetlejuice and things where it shows like Edward Scissorhands, how freaky the conformity and the sort of sameness of a suburbia can be. And I've been very drawn to that. And so I try not to set the things I write, I don't set them in these classic haunted mansions and these like things that I didn't grow up around, because that's not what I know. I know where I'm from, and I think that there is a lot of scares to be found there. And it might not be the house itself might look great. It might be like brand new and all the appliances are sparkling and everything is set up, but that there's something creepy in the lying underneath. And that's what I'm always going for in my work.
Very cool. Very cool. That, you're right. There is something creepy about the sterility, or that even is a word. The sameness.
It is now. It is now. So.
Well, that leads in, I guess, good into the your comic book series, Night of the Chihuahuas. I want to share a video that I pulled off of your Kickstarter page, because I think it does a good job of like highlighting what the series is about. So let me go ahead and share that with everyone right now.
Cool.
Let's see if I can bring it up. Yeah, that is really cool. I mean, I like the cover art. I'm really drawn to comic books. A lot of reasons for the cover art. And I saw, when I was in a comic book shop, I saw the variant covers.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I love those.
This just really stood out to me. I was like, what is that? I want to know more about that. And you also have I think it's the Jaws variation for issue 2, which I thought was really cool. And then the Godzilla one, which you saw in the video, that one looks phenomenal. I'll have to pick that one up as well. So I guess now that we're talking about Night of the Chihuahuas, this has been a project that you've been working on for some time. Is that correct?
Yes, longer than I care to admit. So.
Well, I mean, take us back to the beginning of it. So I did some research. I did some digging. I saw that there was like a video of it you made, I guess, a while back. Did that come before the comic books, correct? Yeah,
it did. So, and the reason that we did the movie was because I had just graduated from film school and I thought I knew everything. Nice. And I was like, oh yeah, we could do that. At the time, there was like a whole digital video boom happening where you can go to like Blockbuster and Hollywood Video, and I'm dating myself here, or aging myself, but like, you can go to Hollywood X. There you go. And so do you remember you could go to these video stores and get what looked like a pretty good horror movie, and you get it home and it was like shot on video with like all these kids that you'd never heard of, and you're like, damn it, I just got ripped off. But then sometimes they were really funny, or there were some quality ones to be had. They were few and far between, and there were a lot of ones that you could just have fun with and have some beers and just laugh at, and then there were some ones that were just unwatchable. But so I had seen those and I was like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna make one. And then of course, idiot that I am, I made one that was shot almost entirely at night, featuring animals, featuring tons of special effects, and like we couldn't do it. It ended up, we finished it in the loosest sense of the terms. Then it was like, this is going I'm not even going to try to get this distributed, man. We're just going to sit on this as a proof of concept. But I always loved the idea of it, and I always said if I ever got the budget, I'd go back to it. And then when I started thinking about getting into comic books, I was like, I kept coming back to this idea. And then every artist that I approached was like, I love that idea. I would love to draw that. And so getting a team assembled was really easy.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I can understand why the concept would work. I mean, it takes from, I think, from like the zombie tropes of a horde, and you pull it into, who doesn't love an animal, a dog, right? So and you combine the two, and we have it. I mean, it's very fun. I like that it's a horror comedy because so it's not really taking itself too seriously.
No, not at all.
which I appreciate, and I like the artwork in the first couple issues. Great. I know that you guys made some changes with the artists going forward, which is great. I like seeing different takes on and different interpretations, I guess, of what the written word coming from you is. So how is it like working with the different artists, and do you have to have like a good working relationship with them in order to like translate what you're saying on page to the artwork?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's, and one of the things is too is when you're writing a script, and this goes for anything, as a writer, you're creating something and then you're giving it over, unless you're doing a novel or literature, in which case it's just going straight to the reader. But when you're doing comic books, when you're doing film, you're giving it to an artist to interpret. You're giving it to a director to interpret, to bring their vision to it. And so I think I'm a very collaborative person by nature, especially in my art. And so for me, I'm bringing artists on board that I think are going to, I like their work. I believe that they're going to bring a unique vision to what I'm writing. And so I'm entrusting them to kind of, bring life to it and add their unique take on it. I'm not there to like micromanage them and tell them what to do, because that's not art. Art is, they have a story to tell as well. And so, a lot of times they're actually bringing a new perspective that I wouldn't have thought of. And so it's been pretty cool to collaborate and say, they say, well, what if we do this? Or, I'm really drawn to this part of this page. Can we restructure the panels so that I can highlight that? And a lot of times it's brought a really cool splash to it. And unfortunately with independent art, it does take a while. And so we've lost the first artist because it was, at a certain point, you've got your day jobs, you've got other things going on. And, when you're that talented, you get hired on to bigger stuff. And it's like, hey, can you guys match this? Nope, you're out. Sorry, man. But, it's been awesome working with you. Thank you for the memories and, go forth and do awesome, because I know that you will. But it's, kind of one of those things where I always liken it to being in a band where, you're making music, you're having a great time, you're making something great, but at a certain point, people will start to, get hired on other places or go do their own thing or whatever, when you're taking as long to do this. If you got the money up front and you can get it all done, then of course, you're all in it together for that run. But that's one of the reasons we're doing a Kickstarter, is because we got to this point, we're doing really well pushing it, but we're doing well slowly. And so we were hoping that the Kickstarter would be a way to kind of make a splash and get in front of people that wouldn't have otherwise heard about us and reach a wider audience than we can, because, we can only go as far as our tank of gas, or as far, we haven't flown anywhere yet. Everywhere we've gone is like a drive from Phoenix. It's like, cool. LA, 7-hour drive. Okay, cool. Let's go to, Northern California. It's a 10-12 hour drive.
To
Vegas, 6 hours, 7 hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very
I've
cool.
never made it from Vegas to Phoenix in 4 hours.
Yeah, traffic. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents live out in Surprise, which is near Phoenix. So
okay, cool.
there, I think 4 or 5 hours. I did once. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like the first suburb you're going to hit on the way to
Vegas.
So
yeah. Yep. With the Boon, I say Boon only because I'm recently into comic books, and maybe it's been like this before, but I didn't know. But a lot of the writers and artists that I follow have been coming up with their own creator controlled material. And so more independent comic books. So that's why I call it a Boon, because it's all new to me. How important do you think it is for you to maintain control of that as a creator controlled comic book series, as opposed to maybe, selling off the rights to someone else who might want to run with something similar?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I got to be honest, man. If somebody waved enough money in front of me, I'm selling out. I'm going to sell out so fast,
Why not? Yeah,
I know. I mean, I do love, but the thing is, like, this is my baby. This is something that's very dear to me. The titular the titular Chihuahua Coco is named after the favorite dog I've ever had that I told you about at the start of the start of this conversation. And so it's like, it is very near and dear to me. My name is on it. And so if somebody came in and was like, let's do something completely different, it's like, well, that's not the story I came here to tell. And I feel like I'm very lucky in that I have the ability to say, no, I would rather do this for less initial exposure and money to tell the story that I want to tell, as opposed to having to, say, yes, I'll do whatever you want if you've got a few bucks, kind of thing, or if you can, drop a few bucks in the hat. So I am hoping that we can continue that. I'm definitely hoping that, I know how the story ends. Obviously, it's going to be a 5-issue series. We're almost there. Issue 3 is ready to go with this Kickstarter. Issue 4 is being worked on right now, and then the script for 5 is already done. So it's like,
nice.
We're getting there. I'm going to throw a massive party when it's done, because it's been a really long. It's been a long process, and just to see it completed is going to be so fulfilling, and I know that it will be. And like I said, the end is in sight. We're almost there. And then there's more to be told. The initial story ends after 5, but there's a whole, I don't want to say like a Star Wars style universe, but there is the next issue. The next story is set, and then there's a couple spin-offs that I've got some ideas for, depending on where it goes. But
That's cool.
Killer Chihuahuas, you can do so much with it, right?
The Chihuahua verse, so to speak. Right?
Yeah.
That is really cool. I can see how you can spin that off in many different directions. Maybe one escapes. I don't know how the story ends yet, because I've only read the first 2 issues, but I can just imagine how one runs away from the horde and, causes other mutations elsewhere. So yeah, I can totally see how that could be spinned off. That's pretty cool. So people out there who are watching, if they want to find your Kickstarter, they can just search on Kickstarter for Night of the Chihuahuas. I know you guys have your website, nightofthechihuahuas.com, and they can go there as well. And Chihuahua, CHIHUAHUAS, for everyone.
UAA. Yep, that's right. So I had to, or because Chihuahuas is so hard to spell, if you go to bit.ly/killer dogs, both the K and the D are both capitalized. We did that because Chihuahuas is kind of hard to spell.
That's cool. Okay, well, I'll make sure I'll add in all those links into the description of the YouTube, so everyone can get out there, because I think it's a fun project that everyone needs to see at least, and hopefully support.
Yeah, I tell people, I'm like, listen, if you love Chihuahuas, you're going to love this project. If you hate Chihuahuas, you're going to love this project. There's something for everybody here. I always tell people too, it is, I promise you, it's the best comic book about killer Chihuahuas you're ever going to read. So
there you go. I like it. Well, real quick, briefly, let's chat a little bit about pop culture, since I have you on here, and we are a pop culture show.
All right.
So what are you currently watching, reading, listening to? What do you get your inspiration from? Stuff like that. Just go ahead and just fire lightning around it.
All right, cool. So right now I'm actually reading a book called The Daughter of Dr. Moreau, which is by an author named Sylvia Moreno Garcia. Yeah. She is one of my favorite authors. She wrote a book called Mexican Gothic that is just, it's amazing. And all of her books, I don't think I have, even like the book that I didn't like the most, I still really liked it. It's just some I've loved and some I've just really liked. Daughter of Dr. Moreau is shaping up to be very good. I'm probably about 50 pages into it. TV wise, I just got done watching Welcome to Wrexham. I've become a soccer fan, which I never thought I would be. My son's in club soccer, so that basically consumes my life right now. And so I've become a big soccer fan. The World Cup was a lot of fun to watch. So we just started watching Welcome to Wrexham, and that was great with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. And it reminded me a lot of, we have my favorite sports team right now is the Phoenix Rising, which is our local soccer club. And it kind of reminded me, I saw a lot of parallels between the two, not the historic fan base or anything like that, but like, the up and coming team is trying to elevate itself and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that show's awesome. I love that show.
Yeah, that show was great. We did finally finish it. Gosh, there's so much good TV right now. And then I do a podcast with my wife where we review movies. Like every week, it's called Date Night In, and we do every week, because it's like, we're both we're very busy people, and we have 2 kids that consume most of our time. And so a lot of times at the end of the week, we're exhausted. We don't want to go out. It's like the thought of going out to dinner, out to a movie, out to something is exhausting. And so we're like, well, let's make a cocktail at home and watch a movie. And so we just started doing a podcast where we review them. So we just watched Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which I loved. I thought it was really good.
It was really good. I enjoyed that movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Anything he does is just odd. Like I can't wait to show my kids Pan's Labyrinth. They're not quite ready for it, but like that's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I just can't wait to show it to them.
Yeah, he's an awesome creator. I mean, I think like Hellboy, just like his creatures that he creates. It's just wow.
I can't believe that Hellboy 2 didn't become bigger than it was. I mean, that movie deserved to be.
It was really good. Yeah.
Yes, it was beautiful. It had like so many new. You saw the universe right there in that movie. It's like how many possibilities there were, and the fact that was it for the Hellboy, for his Hellboy, it was it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, I agree. So do you use any music for inspirations when you're getting into your writing mode like that?
Yep.
Or does it depend upon what you're writing?
Yeah, I've actually got one thing is that I get really distracted by lyrics though, so I have to have instrumental when I'm writing, but I have a whole playlist that I keep, and it's I'm a big geek. It's a lot of video game soundtracks, the Silent Hill, Akira Yamaoka's work, some Final Fantasy Nobuo Uematsu's work as well, and some movie soundtracks. So Clint Amsel's, I know what was why am I drawing a blank right now? The Requiem for a Dream soundtrack, cool. A lot of horror soundtracks basically, so a lot of instrumentals.
Very cool.
My wife thinks that she's hiding back there. She's not. That was like I always remember the what was that one where the guys try to do the interview for BBC
and his
like
kids come in,
and the wife is like crawling to try to like just own it.
Just say hi. Yes. Yep. Very cool. Yeah, it seems like we have a lot of similarities with what we use for inspiration. So that's really cool. And I've really recently gotten into more of the movie scores. So what's his name? Michael. Oh, I can't think of his last name. He did the score for like Rogue One. He just directed Werewolf by Night.
Yes. I know exactly who you're talking about. I can't
like some of his music is just beautiful. Of course, there's John Williams, who's the gold standard when it comes to score, I think. But it's just I've been really appreciating that more and more. I don't know if it's just an age thing as we get older. You appreciate more of the creative that it takes to make those scores. Yeah,
and how sweeping they are. And the thing is, like, they always capture the exact mood that you want. So I have, if I'm writing an action sequence, I'm going to listen to something that's from, one of my favorite action scenes. And if it's more somber, I've got I've got the playlist broken down by mood, and then that way,
very cool.
When I'm writing, if it's most of it's kind of eerie, atmospheric stuff.
That's very cool. Well, if anyone wants to follow you and learn more about you, you're on Instagram, Twitter. Where else can people find you, or what's your handle there so people can go look you up and follow your escapades?
Yeah, so I don't really use Twitter much anymore. I'll probably jump back on at some point, but I took a break. I'm just L David Quiroz Jr., and that's EL to start. At Twitter, on Instagram, I am David Quiroz Jr., all one word. And gosh, I think that's about it. I'm not on Facebook. I have not cool enough to have gotten into any of the other social media yet. I feel exhausted. I'm like, I only have time for like one site at a time. So right now it's Instagram. Instagram's where I'm most active on.
I completely hear you. I mean, it's like Snapchat, TikTok. It's like, oh gosh, it's just like, do we have to do that? Can we just stay with there was a comment.
I just figured out how to use Instagram, and I'm like 5 years behind everybody else.
It looks like Nathan said Giancino is the composer's name.
Oh, so thank you.
Thank you, Nathan, for helping us old guys out. So yeah, I think unless you have any parting thoughts you'd like to share with us about your Night of the Chihuahuas tale, I think that will wrap it up for tonight.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, just we wanted to thank everybody, because this has been something that I never thought possible. I mean, we raised 100% of our funding in 3 days.
Wow,
we're
cool.
like 9 days in and we're at 170% funding, which it sounds great, but I don't want people to hear that and think like, oh, cool, they've got it. I don't have to do anything.
Right. No,
because, the more support
that's
that
why
we
I
get,
didn't say that.
thank you. But like the more support that we get, the more we fight the algorithms, because everything right now is about fighting those damn algorithms. And it's like, it's hard for people to find us sometimes because we're getting pushed to the bottom of people's feeds, or, Kickstarter is we're not one of the projects that they're have found and like kicked to the top of their page yet. And the more people talk about it, and, we have a project that we believe in. We have a project that we've been to so many Comic Cons, so many fan fusions, so many events that have just, people's eyes light up when they see it and they love it and they're telling their friends. And, we're just trying to reach a bigger audience. We're just trying to get, we believe in it so much that we want it out in front of more people, and I've done a lot of projects, or I shouldn't say a lot. I've done some projects before where I'm like, it was a paycheck. It was something, it just got me through, and that's great. And now it's lost to history. This is not one of those. This is something that I'm very passionate about, that I think, you're really going to enjoy, and I hope you give it a chance. And I always tell people too, if you can't support us with your wallet, that's fine. We know that times are tough right now, and, everybody's economic situation is different, but, please help us, spread the word, tell your friends, retweet, relink us, however that works on Instagram. I forget. Just share the link. That's what I'm trying to say. So, independent art is really difficult. It's a labor of love. And there's, it's really easy to get your stuff somewhere else, but, we're telling a story that you're not going to find anywhere else. It's very unique. And so, if you want to see more, we do require that support.
Yeah. And everyone should support. Again, we are talking with David Quiroz Jr., the writer of Night of the Chihuahuas. You can go find them on Instagram, like he said, and it doesn't take much time to share your support. Share a link. It's really simple to do. Just do it.
Exactly.
And it's free. You could do that part. And then if you have, a few extra bucks, you want a cool comic book, grab it.
Yeah.
Be one of the supporters. So thank you, David, for taking some time to chat with us today. We really appreciate it here. And we will do all that we can to help support and make issues 4 and 5 and 6 that much easier to get out there.
Cool, man. We appreciate it. It's great.
Yeah,
5. We'll do the 6 to be a bonus issue. So.
Very cool. So thank you again, David. We appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me on, man. It was great.